League One's Championship playoff final is full of London Reds. Charlton and Leyton Orient playing for a place in the Championship on Sunday. Two London clubs going head to head. It's going to be an incredible atmosphere. I'm Ali Maxwell. George Elek is here too. George, we've both been pretty open about the fact that having been to now probably over a dozen EFL playoff finals together, the Charlton fans against Sunderland, the loudest, best fans we've ever heard. And they're coming out in their numbers once again here. It's first and foremost going to be a hell of an atmosphere with Orient no doubt playing their part too.
Yeah, it will be. I can't imagine there have been many shorter combined distances for both teams to travel for a playoff final before, albeit both on the other side of London, but south east and east. Charlton were incredible that day. And what was interesting is that Charlton were incredible that day, and it felt like the end of a really horrible period of time for the club, where they were done with the bad owners. They were going back into the Championship, led by two people very close to the club in Lee Bowyer and Johnny Jackson, and it was a brave new dawn. And sadly, that didn't really turn out to be the case. They've had massive off-field issues since then. And I guess this will probably again feel like, if they do it in League One, it'll feel very similar. It'll feel like they are heading back to the Championship with someone with close ties to the club and Nathan Jones leading them back to where they believe they belong, with a bright future ahead of them. And fingers crossed for their part that
and new
it's
owners
not a false dawn.
Who so far so good.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And with Leyton Orient, there's a similar case where they were recently bought. It's by seemingly ambitious American owners, and they will hope that this is their first step to kind of changing the course of their club, given that it was only 2 seasons ago that they were winning the League Two title. So yeah, it'll be a pretty special day, I'm sure. Really intrigued to see. I mean, we know how many fans Charlton will bring. Interested to see how many Orient bring, because obviously not a long journey whatsoever. And it's been a while since they've been in one of these. I think, 11 years?
Exactly 11 years ago, they lost the League One playoff final on penalties to Rotherham. They haven't been in the second tier of English football since 1981, 1982. So even longer, I think I'm right in saying, George, than Oxford had been below the second tier. Therefore, you can kind of relate to what this would mean for that Orient fan base, and for a lot of them who won't have ever seen their team play at that level before. Charlton, obviously, a richer history in the top 2 tiers, certainly in the last 30 years or so. But 8 of their last 9 seasons spent in League One, just that one, as you mentioned, 1920 up in the Champ, straight back down again. Narrative dripping from every orifice here. And both managers have done remarkable jobs taking teams out of low ebb and dragging them upwards. Wellens has been doing it for a longer period of time with this Orient side. When he came in, they were not far above the League Two relegation places. He pulled them up by their bootstraps. They won the league the next season. They finished mid-table in League One, and then they finish in the top 6. It's an absurd managerial tenure so far, to be honest. And he, in my eyes, absolutely deserves a shot of being a Championship manager, and has probably done more than enough compared to a lot of his peers in League One and League Two to earn himself that opportunity. Nathan Jones is a funny one, George, isn't he? Because he's managed in the Premier League, in the Championship, in League One, League Two, but as you were pointing out to me the other day, for anyone that may have forgotten, only one of the 3 Luton promotions ended up being him lifting trophies, celebrating at full time, because he'd left them on 2 of the occasions.
Yeah, he jumped ship twice, so he wasn't. I mean, relatively early in the League One promotion season, I think it was in January, he moved on to Stoke, and then a bit later. Was it a bit later, or was it similar time? He moved on to. I think it's actually earlier, wasn't it? Because he famously beat Manchester City in the Cup in January at Southampton. So he didn't even manage over half the season in either of Luton's promotions out of League One and the Championship. And even though he will, I'm sure, he hasn't told me, but I'm pretty sure he will feel like they were his promotions and that he rightly played a big part in them, he's still only got 1 in the CV out of League Two. So, I think there is massive personal significance to Nathan Jones, not just because he was someone whose career was looking... I mean, where was he after Southampton? It was very hard to see another Championship club taking him on apart from Luton. And even in December, where things weren't going too well at Charlton, there were a few who I think were starting to ask the question as to whether or not he was the right fit. So for him to have got Charlton to the playoff final, and for him to be on the precipice of his second career promotion and to be at the helm to do so, and to get himself back into the Championship the hard way, I think is of immense personal significance to him.
How do you think this game's going to look, George Elek?
Pretty ugly. Charlton games, for the most part, look pretty ugly. I don't think the ball will spend much time kind of in possession, if that makes sense. I think we'll see very, very few periods of play where we see kind of long strings of passing phases pass. And I think the first goal will have a massive impact on how it looks generally, if there is a first goal. Leyton Orient are clearly a side who offer a lot of attacking threat. Again, they've got players who are very good attacking into space. They will have the pace to get in behind Charlton, but I imagine Charlton probably will try and stop them from having the space to get in behind. We'll look to defend, from the effectively get into duels with Aji and Kelman in the air, and rather than kind of on the turn. So that'll be difficult for them. I think Charlton will be relatively attritional. They'll look to get the ball out wide and get their kind of wide players into one-on-one situations with the Orient fullbacks and get early balls into the box towards Godden. But yeah, I don't think this is a game for the purist in the way that if you like the way the football looked 20, 30 years ago, then this might be for you.
Yeah, tactically, as I've mentioned a few times, Charlton, since about midway through the season, have been playing what is basically a hybrid 3-5-2, 4-2-3-1. Basically defend with a back five in the main, out of possession. And Tyrese Campbell, in that sense, would be considered kind of as part of a front two with Matty Godden. But then Thierry Small is kind of the key chess piece. As soon as they win the ball back, Small goes high and right and will play in a very attacking right wing role. And Campbell does his best work kind of drifting out to the left, getting on the ball and running diagonally towards goal at fullbacks. Now, these are two really exciting young players, but in Small, who had an injury towards the end of the season, wasn't able to start the first leg, did start the second leg before coming off after 60 minutes. Hopefully there's not too much rust there, because he is someone who can come up with big moments with his electric pace and directness. Tyrese Campbell has been the absolute apple of Nathan Jones's eye this season, and has come up with some big moments, particularly in the last few months where the goals have started to flow a little bit. However, didn't have a particularly standout playoff semi-final tie, and you're looking for the big players who could win this game for Charlton, and Godden right now is kind of the one that stands out. But Campbell absolutely, if he comes to play, can cause Orient problems, particularly because on the right side of Orient's defence, Ethan Galbraith is their playmaker, basically. So from that point of view, they're an interesting team where he will be on the ball as much as they can possibly get him on the ball. And the way that he's able to manipulate the ball in tight spaces, even under pressure, I'm sure he will be, whether it's Edwards pushing up from left wing back or whether it's Campbell just basically doing a man marking job, I could see that as well. So clever in tight spaces, really good when it comes to give and goes and combining in triangles with other central midfielders, with the right winger, Ajay most likely, with Donnelly as well. He's got a really good connection with the number 10 for Leyton Orient, and a couple of times in the semi-finals where he found Donnelly with really good forward passes that kind of unlocked a dangerous attack for Leyton Orient, with Donnelly himself excelling when it comes to through balls, vision, execution, technique, things like that in the number 10 role. So it's really interesting from a tactical point of view, is that Charlton, I think, will want to put quite a lot of pressure on Galbraith so that he can't just do whatever he wants and have time and space on the ball. Equally, if they do put too much pressure on him and push too many bodies forward to try and stop the supply, he can break them open, and he will break them open. So that'll be a really interesting one from an Orient attacking point of view, Charlton defensive point of view. And off the bench, you'd say Charlton are probably stronger, partly because they have Chuck Sanike, who can come on and play off the bench, who is basically a dedicated substitute and has been for a few years, is very, very good at that. He can't play 90 minutes, but he can play 20. And he's got size, he's got nous, he can score goals. The way that they play suits Anike really well, coming off the bench and being the target for long passes forward. So he's a big danger. Orient's bench options slightly less sexy. Markanday hasn't made a big impact since rerouting himself from a loan at Chesterfield in League Two to Leyton Orient in the second half of the season. Abdoulaye scored a good penalty, has had some good moments as well since joining in January, but hasn't had a consistent impact either in an Orient shirt. So from an Orient point of view, I sort of feel like, even though Charlton are the favourites, and even though Charlton won both games in the regular season, both in injury time with set-piece goals, Orient have to try and reframe this game as them needing to score first and needing to impose themselves. They can't just let what happened to Wycombe happen to them, where Charlton were able to play the game entirely on their terms. And Wycombe still managed to only lose by 1-0 over 2 legs, but they can't have been comfortable with the way those games looked. And Orient need to make sure that from the start, it doesn't just play out the way that Charlton want to play, because it won't suit them. And there is a chance that they can hurt Charlton, but I really think they need to be leading with 10 minutes to go, ideally. I don't see them being the stronger force as the game ticks towards 90, as the game goes into extras, if it does. And that will be very, very interesting. So yeah, those 2 regular season games kind of loom large as well, when you know that they were tight. And that's the first thing to say from a neutral's point of view. This is unlikely to be a dominant win for either side, but Charlton did win them late on with set-piece goals. And George, that has to be a concern for Orient, where both in terms of the makeup of their players, where they don't have many aerially dominant players, and in the fact that Fraser Horsfall both scored in the first leg and hit the bar in the second leg. And Lloyd Jones, Macaulay Gillespie, Kane Ramsey trotting up for set pieces will be pretty excited about what could come from those situations.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's going to be a big part of this game. Will be Charlton just getting the ball in the box wherever possible, and they're going to have to defend their box incredibly well. And that is, especially because I can't see either giving away too much in open play. I'm sure Richie Wellens will be very aware, and that's the one thing to say. They've had a lot of time to prepare for this. I'm sure they will be doing a lot of work in terms of defending set pieces. But yes, of all the 3, I think probably of all the 3, I mean, Sunderland's defending set pieces was obviously very good in the 2 legs, but Sheffield United's proficiency from them is also impressive. And we know that Walsall and Dons are both pretty good from set pieces too. So it could be a running theme, especially in games that are likely to be as tight as playoff finals.
And we purposefully have left until the end 2 massive names, 2 massive League One goal scorers who very clearly are the most likely match winners for either side. Matty Godden and Charlie Kelman. We are going to hit the FOTMob corner button and analyse these 2 number 9s who could feasibly sniff out and take chances to send their team up to the Championship. And George, both of them took a while to get going this season and finished the season as League One's premier goal scorers. Kelman with 19 goals in the last 5 months as we record, from mid-December onwards, and Godden 14 goals in that time. Kelman scoring twice in the first leg against Stockport, once when he was offside, once from the penalty spot. Godden scoring the only goal in the 2 games against Wycombe. Kelman, the league's top scorer, had just an incredible season. What I love about this with Kelman is that there's an extent to which it came out of nowhere. He has never put together a goal-scoring season like this. He has never finished his chances this consistently. But I also think from a player profile point of view, it's not a massive surprise that someone like this, when they get more experience, they get a little older, they get a bit more nous, and they play for the right team, suddenly it unlocks a level of goal scoring that you haven't seen before. Because Kelman is someone that isn't necessarily in the mould of the modern striker, who is 6'3", incredibly athletic, really good at disrupting centre-backs physically, drops in and links play, and all those sorts of things. He's like kind of old school, like Jamie Vardy kind of profile. On the shoulder of defenders, constantly running in behind, constantly running into channels to latch onto balls over the top. Not really involved at all in build-up, quite frankly. And will probably have the fewest touches in the whole game, but comes alive inside the penalty box, first-time finishes, headers, flicked headers, and has also added a couple of goals from the kind of wide parts of each area. But when you look at his shot map, I mean, almost all of them are between the posts. Almost all of them are inside the box. It's 21 goals from 111 shots, from 18.64 XG over the course of the season. His shot placement map does show, like most strikers do, that he has a few spots that he likes to look for. Low and hard to the goalkeeper's right, Kelman's left, has been where he scored most of his goals. When he goes the other way, he tends to try, normally because he's in the left channel, to pick out the far top corner, and he's had some success with 3 such goals this season. But something that Charlton will have looked at, and their keeper, Mannion, will no doubt be aware of, is that Kelman likes it low and hard to the keeper's right. Really, really tough to keep out when you strike it as well as he does. You can see from his stats on FOTMob that when it comes to goal scoring, he ranks, unsurprisingly, right at the top of the charts for League One. Goal scorers, both goal output, expected goals per 90, expected goals on target, which kind of measures the shot placement, if you like, and shows that when it comes to his finishing this season, he has turned the chances that he's been created into better opportunities with the placement of his finishing. Lots of shots, hits the target with regularity. Excellent goal scorer that Charlton have to keep a close eye on. Outside of that, not a huge amount. You look at the numbers, there's a lot of orange, there's a lot of red on FOTMob, which suggests that within his League One peer group of strikers, he's not doing the same sort of things that a lot of them are. He doesn't dribble a huge amount. He takes very few touches, but a huge proportion inside the opposition box kind of sums him up. When it comes to passing, getting on the ball, chance creation, not a huge amount going on there for successful passes. One of the lowest in the whole league among strikers. And defensively, he's mobile. He can press, but he's not someone that absolutely flies into challenges. He's not someone, and Orient aren't really a team that put a huge onus on trying to win the ball back right at the very top of the pitch. It's more about getting into their shape, soaking it up, and then hoping to use Kelman, Ajay and co to break on the counter-attack. So a massive name heading into the playoff final, the league's top scorer, and you can see why he's done so well for a team that creates chances for him. George, tell me a little about Matty Godden.
Yeah, very different in profile to Kelman in terms of what they've done in their career thus far. He's someone who scored a lot of goals at Stevenage, scored goals as many do at Peterborough, got his move to Coventry where, certainly outside the Championship, he was a really reliable goal scorer before becoming kind of a bit of a bit part player, but someone who still scored goals off the bench, but was, a really handy option to come on because of the way that he would run, consistently run and harry defenders. And that's kind of the role that we see here, where anyone who watched the Charlton-Wycombe game, the second leg, would have seen a Godden who was isolated for the most part and did a lot of running, had a lot of balls played into him with very little joy. And that's no criticism of him. It's mainly because of how isolated he was without really having men running off him and around him. But when the chance fell, it fell to him and he was able to convert it. With the form he's shown later on in the season, it's worth noting that Charlton kind of changed a bit in the last couple of months of the season, where when they hit form, they were relatively free scoring. I think they were kind of riding the crest of a wave, and there was a bit of a kind of reversion to type in the Wycombe games, which I think will be consistent here. But having said that, I'd be surprised if Charlton are able to win this game in normal time or before penalties if Godden doesn't play a big part in that. And he himself is also a threat from set pieces. He's scored 18 goals this season. And if you look at his shot map, it's really strong. The goals come, for the most part, between the two posts. He's a striker who doesn't take shots from range. His shot locations are generally very good, and the 18 goals have come from 78 shots and 15.2 XG, so decent finishing too. He's predominantly right-footed, and that's reflected in his shot tally, where 56 shots with his right foot, 11 headed shots, and 11 left-footed shots. But he's also kind of good with all three. 13 of his 18 goals have come with his right foot, but 3 of his 11 left-footed shots have gone in, and he scored 2 headed goals as well. So he's definitely someone who can be a kind of threat in different ways. He's not particularly creative. He's very much a kind of old school centre forward. Just 1 assist this season that came from 1 expected assists. But where he's really strong is his duels. He's someone who goes for everything in the air. Like the 40% duel win rate doesn't seem massive, but when you consider he's not like a big target man striker, it's still relatively impressive, I would say.
We need a metric that takes into account a striker's height. Because it's like, pound for pound in boxing. I feel like we could call it inch for inch.
Yes, that would be good.
Godden would be right up there.
Yeah, and he's someone who his pressing will be important too, where if Leyton Orient do try and play out from the back, he'll be the person leading that. So he's someone who, as an older player and someone who's been a Coventry player for the 2 seasons before this, who was on the pitch, came off the bench in extra time in the FA Cup semi-final last season, and surprisingly to me looking back, didn't take a penalty, which I can't really understand why he didn't take a penalty, who wasn't in the squad. I think he must have been injured for the playoff final against Luton a couple of years ago. He will absolutely feel like he has got some unfinished business at Wembley himself, and he'll be relishing the opportunity this time, having missed out twice, of being able to impact those 2 big games of leading the line for Charlton. So I'd be shocked if he doesn't have a big part to play. I don't think we'll be seeing Matty Godden taken off after 65 minutes, having not really done anything.
2 massive players in the League One playoff final, and with thanks to FOTMob for providing such in-depth data coverage of all 3 EFL leagues and helping us to analyse players, teams, managers, all EFL football throughout the season on FOTMob Corner. Do make sure you download FOTMob using the link in the show notes. And if you've been watching this on YouTube, please make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, and do leave us a comment with your score prediction. George, when it comes to us making predictions, I'm kind of going gutty again, which is always a concern. My wife always says, I don't like it when your gut rears its head. I don't like it. And I'm like, well, sometimes it has to. It's unavoidable. And I'm leaning Orient.
I feel like that could be a euphemism for something not very nice.
I'm leaning Orient, and I don't think there's massive logic in thinking that Orient are the most likely winners here. But I have a feeling, and I cannot deny it. I think that Charlton have been an amazing team who've picked up an incredible amount of points. When I watch them, I don't always think that they're that good going forward, and they are undeniably very, very good defensively. But whenever I watch Orient, I think this is a team who, with the players that they have, can hurt you, at the flick of a switch, at the drop of a hat. And so I fancy Orient to score. I'm pretty concerned about their set-piece defending. I'm pretty concerned about the aerial dominance that Charlton have imposed on them over the course of the season. But I kind of want to believe in Omar Beckles. So I'm going to pick Orient to win 1-0 as my League One playoff final prediction. Now, your job on this preview show is the betting picks for the game, using AK Bet's prices. What do you think the best value is here?
I think Charlton are the right favourites to get promoted, but I think the 13-5 about Orient to win the game in 90 is of interest, and it's probably a bit too big. Just because I can't imagine there are going to be very many goals, and Orient absolutely have the attacking quality in Kelman, Donnelly, Adji to cause Charlton some serious problems. So from a price perspective and a betting perspective, I'd be leaning on Orient's side as well. But my main fancy here is the no goal scorer bet at 15-2. AK bets have pushed out their prices to match the best price in the market on all of these, by the way, at the time of recording. Obviously that's subject to change, but at the time of recording, these are the best prices in the market. I was surprised to see that Charlton have only drawn 4 regular season games 0-0, Orient 5. So there's nothing in that to suggest that this should be any bigger than 15-2. Sorry, any shorter than 15-2. But I think if you look at the way that Charlton approached their game against Wycombe, obviously Wycombe played a big part in this because they themselves aren't the most expansive. It's really hard to see why this would be a game of many chances. When you also consider that no goal scorer means that own goals are fine and do not make the bet become a loser, especially given the way that Charlton attack, with balls coming into the box consistently through crosses from set pieces and open play. It wouldn't be a huge surprise to me if there is an own goal, and that would keep the bet alive, especially in a low scoring game. But I just think the way that Charlton approach this, given what's at stake, I'd be surprised if 0-0 wasn't quite a big runner and we didn't get a run for our money at a relatively big price of 15-2.
League One playoff final, let us know what you think the score will be. Let us know who you think will be in the Championship next season.